Good morning. It's Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. This is To My Liberal Friends, and I'm John Haddo. When Vladimir Putin first invaded Ukraine, he justified it to the Russian people by claiming he was freeing Russian and Ukrainian people from the overreaching influence of neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. Of course, this was patently false, as the nation of Ukraine has a democratically elected leadership, unlike Russia, where the elections are staged in name only to ensure that Putin and his allies are, quote, elected, unquote, to lead the nation. But now the war has not gone the way Putin thought it would. I believe he thought this would last a few days, Ukraine would fold, and President Zelensky would flee from the country, and Russia would install a puppet government that took its orders from Moscow. But the exact obvious has occurred. We are now closing on 3 weeks since the invasion started. The people of Ukraine are showing total resolve and are fiercely fighting back. And President Zelensky has not only stayed in Ukraine, but he has rallied both the Ukrainian people and the world to oppose this Russian aggression. He has become a leader the free people of the world have come to admire and respect. I should also point out that the media in the United States does not give Volodymyr Zelensky the full credit that he deserves. They love to point out that he was a comedian before becoming in politics, but they rarely mention he was also a lawyer. He is not just some comedian that's uneducated. He's a lawyer. This is typical of the little media in this country. They derided Ronald Reagan as a simple actor before he became the governor of California and later the president of the United States. He became an icon in political history while most of his media detractors quietly slipped into anonymity to be quickly forgotten. Such will be the same for President Zelensky. He will be remembered. He will be revered. But back to Putin and his claim that he is ridding the Ukraine of neo-Nazis. This is laughable on its face, but now the Russian media political pundits are suggesting that Russian troops engage in public hangings in Ukrainian cities where the population has opposed this Russian invasion. During a Sunday broadcast show on Russia One, the primary news source for public people in Russia and state-owned, one pundit strongly advocated for public hangings to a military tribunal once Russia's dominance is established in certain areas of Ukraine. The journalist, whose name was not initially reported, cited, quote, the special military operation, end quote, in Ukraine, a term that's pushed by Russian President Vladimir Putin as an attempt to justify the invasion to the Russian populace by claiming his troops, as I say, are getting rid of neo-Nazis. Another pundit came on and said, quote, I would restore the death penalty by hanging through military tribunal. And that pundit speaking Russian said, according to a translated by Newsweek magazine, there are people in Ukraine who threaten Russian citizens and create a threat to us. In my view, this is of utmost importance. And yet another one went on to say we cannot let morality stop what is needed to be done. Now ask anyone listening to me, does this not sound like the actions of the Nazis during World War II, where anyone that opposed the German forces were executed? And yet Putin claims he's getting rid of neo-Nazis while he wants to act like the Nazis did during World War II. And what is the response of the leader of the free world, President Joe Biden? We've heard nothing from him on this and other atrocities, other than to say that it's a terrible thing. The government of Estonia, once a Soviet Union state, before the breakup of the Soviet Union, and now a member of NATO, has openly called for a no-fly zone over the nation of Ukraine, the first NATO nation to do so. But Joe Biden refuses to consider such an action because he's afraid it might irritate Vladimir Putin. Ukraine is asked to receive the Polish MiGs that have been offered to them by Poland, and Joe Biden has vetoed that idea because it might make Putin angry. My point here is that Biden is allowing Putin to dictate the terms of how the relationship between the United States and Russia will be during his aggression in Ukraine. Biden worries that any action on his part will cause a quick reaction by Putin, and so he does nothing. Clearly, Putin knows how to play a weak U.S. president in Joe Biden. The time has come to act as a leader of the free world. The time has come to show that the United States and NATO will not tolerate the crimes being committed in Ukraine by Russian forces. And I'm talking about indiscriminate bombing of civilian targets, Destroying hospitals and apartment buildings have no military value. They are attacked by Russian military forces as a means of intimidating the Ukrainian people. President Biden should immediately meet with the rest of NATO and then announce that NATO forces will enforce a no-fly zone over the nation of Ukraine. That means they will engage any military aircraft operating in the airspace and either force them out of that airspace or shoot them down. Biden needs to be the leader and not the lapdog of Putin. He needs to make Putin react to him rather than the reverse. Make Putin start worrying, how's the United States going to react to some of the things I've done? The Russian people are starting to get the message over what this war is about. Putin has tried to block the internet and all other news sources to keep the Russian people in the dark. But just yesterday, Marina Ovsyannikova, a producer at Russia One, the primary news station in Russia, burst onto the camera set holding up a sign denouncing the war and calling it a crime. And I'm hoping that most of you have seen the video of that. She has been arrested and, of course, denounced by the Russian leadership as a hooligan, and nobody seems to know where she's been taken after being arrested. But she stood up to Putin and his thugs, and unlike Joe Biden, she did not worry about how Putin would react. She put her own safety at risk. She only intended to let the Russian people know that the truth really is in this war, that it is a crime by Russia. There are thousands of other Russians who have taken to the streets to protest the war, and one expert stated that there are now more political prisoners in Russia than during the time of the Soviet Union. Any reasonable person knows that the longer this war goes on, the weaker Putin's position becomes. He was banking on 4 days and a total victory. Now his forces are running low on food and ammunition. He's outrunning his supply lines. Now the true information is slowly leaking in for the Russian people to see what's happening. Joe Biden needs to see this as well. He needs to stop listening to the woke political appointees in his White House and start listening to the military experts who know that Russia cannot sustain this attack forever. He needs to make Putin start worrying about what Joe Biden will do instead of the reverse. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.